Hello and welcome to the Talk Football Pod. I am joined by Paul. Paul is back again and we are going to go at it picking our England squad for the Euros. Welcome to the pod, Paul.
Thanks very much for having me.
Right, we're going to kick off with looking at our 26-man squads. I'm going to let you go first and then I'll come in with mine and see what differences we've got.
You want me to run through all 26?
Yeah.
Okay, dokes. I'm 25 and I'm split between two players for my last slot, so I'll do that and then I'll come to my final one. So I think the keepers are easy. So Pickford, Henderson, Pope. In defence or in centre half, I've got four recognised centre halves in Stones, Maguire, Keane and Cody. And then fullbacks, I've picked Walker, and Walker in part, should we decide to go to a three at the back, then Walker can play that. I've then got Shaw and Chilwell, and then Alexander-Arnold. So Shaw, Chilwell at left back, Alexander-Arnold and Walker obviously being my right-sided fullbacks. In the midfield, Grealish, Mount, Rice, Henderson, Maddison and Phillips, and then more on the attacking side, Foden, Sancho, Lingard, Ings, Calvert-Lewin, Rashford, Sterling, Kane, and then I'm split and I can't make my mind up between Saka and Greenwood for my final 26 spot. They're both kids. Experience would do them well. I think Saka's been brilliant, hasn't he, for Arsenal, and Greenwood has been brilliant for United. What am I looking at? Kane, Calvert-Lewin, Ings. I think I'm going to go for Greenwood, so I've got a fourth who could be an out-and-out striker there.
I mean, I thought about Saka myself because not only because of us, he's very versatile, so he can play wing back, he can play anywhere across the midfield or the front line. So he was a name that I did consider as well. And I've changed my mind so many times on this 26. Yet again, I've gone with the same goalkeepers as yourself in Henderson, Pickford. At the back, slightly different. So I've gone with Maguire, Stones, Mings, Dyer and Godfrey. Now I'm a bit torn between Godfrey and Keane, but I like Godfrey. He's had arguably he's probably been Everton's best player this season. He can play in a variety of roles across the whole of the back line as well. Centre half, he can fill in at left back. He's done that for Everton this season when Digne's been out. And obviously Dyer, because yet again, there's a bit of versatility there with Dyer. Can play obviously in a central midfield role, as well as obviously a centre back. Left backs, I think they picked themselves, Chilwell and Shaw. Don't think anyone's going to be in any disagreement with them two. I don't think we've got anyone else, other than maybe Saka. Right backs, I'm picking three because, yet again, I'm thinking versatile. So I've gone with Walker, Alexander-Arnold and James. I had to have James in there. He's my boy. So, but my thinking behind that is obviously if we play a back three, now we were really successful, get to a semi-final of the World Cup, playing with Walker, Stones and Maguire as a back three. I know Walker don't particularly like it, but I think he's quite well suited at it, which is why I've picked them three. I've gone with Alexander-Arnold over Trippier, albeit Trippier has had a fantastic season, has just won the La Liga last night, and also playing with a back three with him in the right wing-back role. So it was difficult, and an honourable mention has to go to Wan-Bissaka as well.
We have so many good right backs.
We have, it's ridiculous, and there is others around as well. I mean, there is other young players. My midfield, which is quite tricky because there is a couple of injuries knocking about. Obviously, Rice is injured at the moment, close to being on the way back. Henderson's injured, but yet again supposed to be close to a return. But my midfields, I've gone with Rice, Henderson. This is a controversial one. Bellingham from Dortmund. I know he's 17, but the kid can do everything. He can play central defensive midfield. He can play as a striker. He can play on the wides, a box-to-box midfielder. The boy's got everything. And this season for Dortmund, he's been outstanding, showed incredible maturity for someone his age. So I've gone with him, and then I've gone with Phillips. I'm not a massive fan of Calvin Phillips, but I think if you need someone who will just literally sit in front of a back four and just receive the ball, play a simple pass, keep things ticking, he's good. But he wouldn't make my starting lineup. but I'd have him in the squad. Central attacking midfielders, I've gone with Mount, Foden, Grealish, and I've put Lingard in because I think we've got a lot of young players, and Jesse's got a bit of tournament experience. Obviously played at the last World Cup. He's on form, and I like picking players that are on a level of form. And then I've gone with wide players, a few wide players as well, being Sterling, Rashford, and Sancho. Obviously, Sterling, he's not had a great season, but in a big game, it could be that one player that makes a difference. And he still is quite versatile, so he can play as a tucked-in sort of 10 in behind a forward line, and obviously can play as an out-and-out winger down the left, and obviously he brings a level of pace to the team. So I've gone with that. Rashford, should we have any injuries to forward, he can play through the middle, and he has had a good season for United. So, and Sancho the same. Sancho is quite versatile across any area of the front line, brings pace, and has had a good season for Dortmund as well. And I've only gone with like two out-and-out strikers in the squad, which is Kane and Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Kane obviously goes without saying, if a fully fit Harry Kane's playing and we give him the right service, we're in with a good shout. And I think Dom, early part of the season, brilliant for Everton, but yet again brings a little bit of pace, bit of everything, but he's also very good in the air. So should we be in a game where we need to go a bit direct, he has got that presence in the box that you can start pinging balls at him, and great hold-up play as well. So that's my 26. There was other players like Saka who were close, and one I really, really wanted to put in, but he ain't played a lot of football, and it's really because I really like him as a player. It's James Maddison at Leicester.
Yeah, I've got Maddison in.
And it was a tough one between him and Lingard, but I've gone with Lingard purely on big club experience, playing Champions League experience, and playing at a major tournament experience.
I kind of feel when you've got a squad that's 26, there's less need for versatility as there is in previous squads. So you can actually pick specialists, I think, and I think also you can think a little bit for the future. So Maddison probably wouldn't get in my first 11, but I'd want him on the bench, and I'd also want him to have the tournament experience because he will more than likely. What's it, Qatar next year, isn't it? Pretty much 12 months. So you're going to want him involved there. And again, why I was umming and ahhing over Saka or Greenwood is because, again, I think them two are going to have good years, and then you're going to want them to have the tournament experience for the World Cup.
Greenwood was another one in the forward line, was close to me. Yeah, again, I mean, I keep saying about the versatility. He's another one of those that does offer that as well. Yeah. Because obviously he plays generally as like a right forward for United, but equally as comfortable through the middle.
Yeah. And neither of them are your Theo Walcotts that are kind of getting in the squad as tourists.
No. And I've kind of wanted to go down that line as well, is that whoever I was to put in my team and whatnot would need to make, to be there to make an impact. So
so where have we differed then? So centre
halves we've differed with. I've gone with Dyer and Godfrey. You've gone with
Cody and Keane. I guess if we're being honest, our reserve centre halves.
I mean, you picked 4, haven't you?
Yes.
I've gone with the extra 1. Bearing in mind the 26-man squad, I've gone with 5 because if we are going to persist with a 3 at the back, if 2 get injured, then you're going down the lines of square pegs, round holes, possibly. Albeit Walker's very comfortable there, so effectively that may give me like a 6th.
Yeah.
But I think, like I say, with the extra and talking about like a specialist in position, I've gone with that. I've gone with Mings because I like having balance in a team, and Mings obviously being left-footed should one of those not make it. Maguire's obviously got an injury at the moment. Potentially he's going to miss the Europa League final, so it's a bit touch and go with him whether or not he's going to be fully at it. So, and I think with Mings as well, he's got good pace. He's a big boy, he's a presence, and he's a bit of a leader.
Yeah, I read an article yesterday with John Terry talking about Mings, and he was certainly very impressed with him. I wouldn't be against swapping Mings for either Cody or Keane.
Yeah.
Dyer's an interesting one, as I think I'm in the minority when it comes to Spurs fans. I actually like Dyer.
Yeah.
But he has definitely been very, very inconsistent this season.
But then he's never let England down though. And I think albeit it's a couple of years on, I think you have got to give a bit of a nod to those players that got us where we were in that World Cup. You know, I think because and also he's an experienced player now. He's not a young head, and I think you need a few older heads around.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why I like Dyer is I like his mentality. I think sometimes mentality can maybe make up for a lack of ability. Not that he necessarily has a lack of ability, but you know, yeah, he has the right mentality, I think. And but I guess I watch him too closely. I guess so because I watch him so closely. He's been so inconsistent. I'm not sure off the basis of this season that he warrants a place in the squad.
Yeah, I get that.
Although if he's a favourite of the manager, then.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're basing this off of what we would pick. If we were thinking about what Southgate's going to pick, I think we could pretty much get close to, or probably even a starting 11 what we think Gareth would pick. But that's not what we're doing.
No. And the right back's interesting because I can't believe, again, as a Spurs man, I completely forgot about Kieran Trippier. Despite I guess Alexander Arnold not being in the best of form,
albeit the last month he's really picked up his game.
I went with him because you can't argue with his delivery.
Yeah,
but you can say the same for Trippier. You know, Trippier is a brilliant free kick taker,
set ball specialist.
As you said, you know, he's not super fast, but he's playing as a right wing back for Atletico, and he did that well, and he did that for Spurs on occasions, and was good. And of course, you know, as you say, he's just won the Liga. So
yeah. I mean, for me, with
right back's tough.
I mean, yeah, it is a real tough one, and I think you could probably go on forever with right backs because we've got so many.
And Wan-Bissaka is probably the best defensive right back of all of them.
And
it's almost like defending is no longer the role of a fullback.
No, I think there's probably less pressure on you to defend if you. I think in most games, particularly the big ones, Southgate will probably go with a back three. Because obviously, you know, when you are in a defensive position, you've got a solid five, possibly two sitting in front of that.
I guess that's the issue with Wan-Bissaka is he doesn't give you the flexibility to move him out as a wing back. Does he?
Albeit, I mean, he does get forward for United. It's not like he's pinned back behind the halfway line, but I think maybe he hasn't got the quality in that final third as any of the other candidates. For me, on his day, Trent is probably the best right back in the world. It's probably be a bit of a shout, but I can't honestly think of anyone else in the world that can do. Yes, there's worries with him defensively. I mean, he's not an absolute rubbish defender, but he has. I think he switches off, and he probably relies, particularly I suppose if you've got Van Dijk and Joe Gomez at the back, you haven't got to worry too much about defending, and he hasn't had to. But obviously
until this year.
But again, I've gone with a bit of form, and he's on form. And for me, there's him coming back into form, and I don't think it's any kind of coincidence that Liverpool's form's picked up, and their forwards have started scoring again, and a lot of that's down to the delivery. Yeah. And then if you're in a tight game, in a quarter of a final of a World Cup, I would trust that, because at the end of the day, you need goals to win games, and I would trust that if I've got Kane and Rashford and whoever steaming into the box, then I'm going to trust Trent to put that on a sixpence. So that's why I went with him. James I like as well because I think there's quite good similarities between the two, and I think they're both. I mean, James has had 2 solid years now playing regularly in Chelsea, first team in the Premier League,
and he played as a centre half, did he not, in the cup
He
final?
did. Now,
how did he play?
Jamie Vardy didn't get a kick.
Okay.
And he did it in both games. He did it in the league game and all. And yet again, he had Vardy in his pocket the whole game. I know Vardy ain't probably the player he was, say, 18 months ago, but he's still a player you can't give a sniff to. And I was a little bit critical of Tuchel doing that, particularly in the cup final. I thought it was the wrong move because you kind of like, you've isolated Vardy out of the game, but you've also then taken away his best attributes on that right side of what he can do going forward. So defensively, James is a hell of a way of a level above Trent in terms of defensive ability. Particularly this last year, he's really matured defensively and still retained that ability to attack as well. But yeah, I've got to put Trent in ahead of him in the starting lineup. Midfield though, I think we have differed a little bit again. I mean, I've gone with young Bellingham in my central defensive midfielders, and You went with a bit more experience.
Henderson and Rice, I guess, are my two my more defensive
main sitters. Yeah.
And then Grealish, Mount, Maddison, and Phillips is a sitter as well, isn't he?
Yeah,
probably won't get much game
So obviously
time.
with like Rice, Henderson, Phillips would be. I mean, obviously some games you probably would only want to put. I think Gareth probably, if there's a criticism of Southgate, is that sometimes I think he plays it too safe against teams that are nowhere near as strong as we are. And I don't think in certain games it warrants playing two defensive midfielders. I think we can be with the attacking talent we've got. I think we can afford to be a bit more on the front foot rather than playing two. My only worry with all three of them, with Rice, Henderson, and Phillips, is none of them are really. They're not players that are going to be up and down the pitch. If you look at the way for Chelsea, for example, with Kante, someone who can pinch the ball and then travel with the ball 50, 60 yards through the pitch and make them transitions.
Okay, but who else other than Kante could do that?
Well, this is where I think Bellingham.
Okay.
Because obviously the age, he's young, he's athletic as well, and he's got the ability on the ball, which is why I've put him in there. Because when I look at a lot of successful teams around Europe, they tend to have, albeit they have kind of similar kind of things with two central sitters, but one of them tends to be more athletic than the other.
Yeah, I think Kante is a bit of a freak, isn't he? In a sense, he's almost like three players in one.
And then if you look at, say for instance, you look at United, for example, their main two this year has been McTominay and Fred. So you've got McTominay's the one who breaks the play up, occasionally gets forward, but Fred's the busy bee. Fred's the one who's kind of like that Kante-esque kind of thing. And I kind of want that. I don't want... my worry is that we're going to be too static in midfield, and that we're going to be... if you have two players that are going to sit there playing crab football, you're knocking the ball side to side without anyone... Because Rice is... Don't get me, Rice is a fantastic player. And it is a player I'd like to see come to Chelsea. I don't think that's ever going to happen now. But on the ball, I don't think he's not... top level ability on the ball.
No, I would just have the one sitter, and then I would get that energy and that movement from the other two guys either side. So a 4-3-3.
Yeah.
I like three at the back, but I just think we've got so much attacking talent that we have to go with a four. And I would just have one guy sitting, and then I would, use our attacking talents elsewhere to give us that energy, I think.
And in terms of the attacking midfielders, I think we're pretty much the same. I think obviously I went with Lingard, and you've got Maddison in there, haven't you?
Yeah, I've got Lingard in too.
Oh, you went in with Lingard.
So
you did go with Lingard.
I'm kind of.
Yeah.
I guess they're flexible, aren't they? I mean,
Grealish. We've both gone with Grealish.
Yep.
He has got a bit of an injury, but it has come back, which I'm really. I mean, bad news for me today, because his chances are he's probably going to start against Chelsea today.
He's got time though. He played against Spurs, didn't he, in a week. He's got a game against Chelsea. He's got a couple of weeks and some friendlies to get himself back up to speed, and maybe having 3 months off might have really benefit him in England.
Saved his legs, and he's close to starting for me, but I think he's probably going to be more effective coming from the bench for England. Do you see him starting?
If I'm to pick an 11, he starts in my 11, but then based on his injury, maybe then he'd be on the bench. Yeah. But I would start him. I think he's just an amazing. It could be one of them ones where
we ease him into the tournament and he ends up possibly being the best player in the tournament. But he has to be in there. And I know he's not been... It's taken him a little while to get in there and get his foot in the door with Southgate. I think probably Southgate had worries about his temperament. Because obviously his history, getting into a bit of trouble and being a bit of a lad. But I think...
If he's fit, he could be the star of the tournament.
I agree.
Because from an England squad perspective,
Mount, actually.
Yeah, the only I say star in the sense that Mount will be better known around Europe because obviously he's playing for Chelsea or playing a Champions League final next weekend. Whereas Grealish, unless you follow the English game really closely, you probably wouldn't have seen that much of him.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, outside Europe, certainly.
Yeah. So I think he might be the breakthrough one a bit. Very similarly, like kind of 1990 and Gaza in the World Cup.
The thing I like about Grealish is that he makes things happen. He's not afraid to take the ball and commit defenders, and he draws so many fouls. I think in the Premier he was the most fouled player, and not so much this year because I think obviously with the injuries, a couple of injuries that he's had, but certainly last year I think he was the most fouled player in the Premier League. But then set pieces are so important, and that
get a free kick around the box, and then
and all of our defenders are capable of scoring goals.
We can keep Kane off them. We might be all right.
In terms of wide players, I think we're pretty similar. Obviously, Sterling. We know what Sterling can do.
Sterling, I'll put Lingard in the wide forward position.
Yeah.
Probably Foden, because he's sort of playing there for City at the minute, isn't he?
Foden's an interesting one.
Rashford, Greenwood, I guess, would be my other ones that can play.
I think arguably Foden's probably our most talented, sort of like midfield, because he can play central midfield as well. I would think he's probably the most sort of complete footballer that we've got in the squad.
Yeah, he's like a Spanish Iniesta type player, isn't he? Like, he can do whatever he wants.
Effectively he was understudy to David Silva, who was probably one of the best in his position for a number of years in what he did. So he's a great player. I'm really glad actually that because there was so much clamour for that. Foden's got to leave. Foden's got to go out and get games.
Yeah, go out on loan more than leave, wasn't it?
Sometimes that doesn't necessarily.
Training with better players makes you a better player.
Yeah. And let's face it, some of the players that they got at City. Yeah. Phenomenal. And strikers, obviously, you're always going to worry with Kane. You're going to wrap him up in cotton wool. Obviously he's going to play today. You've got Leicester, big game as well, obviously, because there is a little bit still riding on it so it's going to be be a competitive game.
And more importantly, I think for Kane, he's going to want the Golden Boot. Yeah. So he'll be shooting on sight at every opportunity making sure that there's someone on the sideline telling him what Mo Salah's up
to. I need Spurs to do us a favour today. So so that's our squad.
You don't want to be short on goals, do you? That's why I've gone Kane, Ings, Calvert-Lewin, and then Rashford / Greenwood, who could play through the middle, or you could play with two up top if you wanted to.
Yeah, I mean with Dom as well. He missed quite a big period in the middle part of the season with injury as well. So possibly, again, fresh legs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I know you had you mentioned a few other names as well in terms of forwards. Danny Ings.
Yeah, I've got Ings in mind, so he's there. And
I feel a little bit sorry for Tammy because he hasn't. I think he would have made this squad
had regular game time.
If we'd have based this off of last season's form. He was right up there. I think he scored 16 goals for us in the Premier League last season. And obviously he hasn't had a shout with the new players that have come in. So I think that's a bit of a shame for Tammy. Because, again, like I say, I think he would have probably got in Southgate's squad. There's other players, like Bamford has had a really good season with Leeds. And he's elegant. He's good. He can play as a target man.
My only issue with Bamford is I don't don't think he's not a guarantee to score a goal. Like you see Kane going for a goal or Ings, and you think they'll score
this season. Calvert-Lewin. I mean, especially them early first few months with Calvert. If the ball went in the box, it was pretty much you really fancied him to score. Mm. But I do like Bamford, and I think again he's one of them players obviously that's gone away, dropped divisions, and worked his way back to the top. With
sort of like a poor man's Kane in that instance, isn't he?
He's got a little bit of.
He's had to really prove himself. It's taken him a while, and
if I was Southgate, I would have been really tempted just to pick up the phone to Vards and say, look, do you fancy? I know you ain't been in the best of form this season, but do you fancy? I've got a 26-man squad.
I think if we were short on a couple of strikers, he might do that. But when you can pick Ings, Calvert-Lewin, and as you say, Bamford. Like, imagine if you're Bamford and he's Southgate's gone. Yeah, I've called up Jamie Vardy, who has ruled himself out for the last 2 years.
Have I got any Scottish grandparents?
I think we've got enough not to have to worry about that. Although I think if he was available for selection, I think you would pick Vardy. But
in terms of starting, this is going to be really difficult now. Whether or not we can agree on a starting 11, a starting formation and a starting 11.
Well, my formation, as much as I want to try and make us play 3-4-3, I'm going to have to go 4-3-3.
So you'd want a 4 at the back.
I'm going to go with 4 at the back so I can get myself next to midfielder.
Do we trust? I mean, obviously, if we're looking at the two starters, then
what's your preferred formation?
I would go with a 3 at the back with wing backs, but because it's a formation that I've obviously seen Tuchel employ this year since he's come in at Chelsea. He's pretty much stuck to it. yes, you lose a man in midfield, but with what you gain in terms of the ability to retain the ball, it's a formation I like, and it was obviously very similar.
Yeah, I think it's a good formation I like, but I just think with our players, it's that argument, isn't it? Do you make the players fit the formation, or does the formation fit the players? And I'm going to go with the formation fitting the players.
So you're obviously, I think it goes without saying, then Maguire and a fit Maguire and Stones would be your two. Who would be your right back? Because bearing in mind now, because if you're thinking about a four at the back, that changes what possibly you may think with right back, because they are going to have a defensive responsibility.
Are we saying is Pickford your keeper?
No, I've gone with Pope.
Oh, okay.
I think Southgate will go with Pickford, but I like Nick Pope. I think, albeit an unfashionable team in Burnley, he faces a lot of shots. But he's also got a presence. He's with Pickford. Pickford's quite a small goalkeeper, and I like a tall goalkeeper who can command his box. And I think Nick Pope stands at around 6'4", 6'5". He's really good at coming for crosses. If I'm putting my mind in, and I'm thinking about it as a centre half, I want to know if I've got balls coming into the box that this guy standing behind me is going to come through me, through the attackers, and he's going to take the ball. I don't get that with Pickford. Pickford's fantastic with his delivery, and
I agree entirely.
Yeah, but Pope's injured at the moment as well.
I would, as far as ability goes, from a goalkeeping perspective, I would say both Pope and Henderson are better than Pickford.
Yes.
However, I don't think either of them have had enough international experience to promote them above Pickford. That's my only.
And Pickford, albeit he's made big wickets for Everton. But he has been he is a good goalkeeper. I'm not gonna. It's not like I'm saying he's rubbish, but I don't know. It's a tricky one. Pickford's never let him. But for me, I like Pope. I've always liked Pope, and I'm surprised that bigger clubs haven't come in for him.
I think they may well do this summer.
Yeah.
Pickford's my choice just based on international experience, but...
Yeah, I mean, in terms of centre-half, so if I'm going with a two, then I would go with the same as you, Maguire and Stones.
Yeah.
And if I was to go for a three, I would probably go with Maguire, Stones, Mings, just for balance.
If I was to go with a three, I would have Walker as my third.
Yeah. I mean, I have penciled him in on there, but again, I change my mind every 5 minutes. We've got so many good players.
Yeah, and then Walker being the third would allow Alexander-Arnold to.
So with your formation being 4-3-3, so you would have three sort of central midfielders.
Yeah, I think in defence I would obviously Stones, Maguire. I think I'd have to at the start of the tournament
bear in mind
Walker.
The first game's. Right back, yeah.
I think I'd have to go with Walker at right back for the first game.
I think whoever you pick out on the left side as well, whoever you pick out of Shaw or Chilwell,
I'd go Chilwell.
See, my heart says Chilwell, but my head says Shaw, and because I think he's been a real leader at Man United this season, and if he retains his fitness, he's got a better. They've both got equal sort of levels.
Who do you think's the best at defending?
Shaw.
Okay.
100%. But also Shaw can do the other side of the game as well going forward, and he's been brilliant. He's got quite a number of assists. He's got a couple of goals this season as well. He's been a real threat. But also I think he's been a real leader on the pitch for Man United this year. Again, it goes back to, I mentioned this in the other episodes as well. Not having crowd noise on and hearing players on the pitch, he doesn't shut up. He's as vocal as Maguire. I think Chilwell has been brilliant for England, but I don't think he has that sort of like aggressive presence about him that Shaw does. It's very close though.
It's tight. It's like
either one.
I'd almost toss a coin at right back or left back.
For me, obviously, I would go with Trent. If we were playing a back four, then I would probably go with Walker, and I would probably leave James and Trent out purely because I want to be a solid. Going forward as I am at the back. So if I was going back four, it'd be Walker, same as you, pretty much. Probably Shaw over Chilwell.
And then if you fall behind, you can make a call where you swap Walker and Alexander-Arnold over. and you almost play Alexander Arnold as a right wing.
Yeah, or even drop a central midfielder out and go to a 3 with them banging on. Central midfielder, who would be your? So you would have? Would you have would 2 sort of sitting and then maybe a 1 as a 10?
No, I'd have
or just 3.
1 sitting and then 2.
Close.
What would you call them? Progressive 8s.
Well, yeah, 8. Yeah, a 6 would be. It's quite a funny one these days because people now. I mean, I remember I was listening to something on Talk Sport and they were talking to some young players and they go, "Oh, where do you play?" And a lot of them were going, "I'm a 6, I'm an 8, I'm a 10." Well, to me, when we were growing up, they were just numbers on your back.
Yeah, you didn't.
You were in a midfielder, you were a right back, you were a whatever.
Well, I'd have 2 number 8s.
Yeah.
So my number 6 would be first choice would be Henderson based on fitness. If not, then Rice.
I like Henderson as well because he does move the ball quickly, and I think Liverpool were at their best when Henderson was breaking them lines, breaking them transitions between midfield and attack, and feeding fast balls into the forward area. So I completely agree on Henderson.
And then my two number 8s, as I called it, would be Grealish and Mount. So Henderson sitting, Grealish and Mount having the freedom and the creativity.
A lot of the times this season for Chelsea, when we've been either chasing a game a little bit and all that, and rather than take Mount out of the team and sub him off in terms of like an attacking sense, he took a midfielder off, dropped Mount into the midfield, so Mount would easily sort of slot in alongside Henderson in sort of transitions of play to help out defensively and link the midfield as well. So yeah. Mount gets in mine anyway. I don't care. We could be playing whatever formation Mount plays. But yeah. So yeah, you got them. Who was your other one?
Grealish, Mount, Henderson. So that's my 3 in the middle.
Yeah.
What would you go with?
If I'm going with 2 holders, then it would be Rice and Henderson. But I'm torn between Rice and Bellingham. If I'm playing 1 in there, then I think you have to play Henderson because he's a natural leader.
2 holders is a bit too Jose Mourinho for my liking.
Yeah.
It's like, Sissoko and Højbjerg. It's like, you just don't need. But I don't think you need it, and I don't think you want it.
Yeah, a lot of that depends on you as well.
Depends who you're playing, obviously.
It depends who you're playing, and depends on what I'm doing in the forward area. Would depend on whether I put 2 in there or I put 1 in there. But yeah, I think we're both agreed on that. Henderson as your 1, and if you had 2 out and out central, would probably him with Rice. Rice is a funny one.
I don't like it. I'm not sure on Rice, and that's not me being critical of him. But I mean, Chelsea seem to want to pay a crazy amount of money for him.
But when Frank was looking at him, he wasn't looking at him as a midfielder. He was looking at playing him where he started off as a centre half. So it's a difficult one with him. He's one of them ones that I think naturally I think he is probably a better centre half than he is a midfielder. But because he has a little bit more ability on the ball than most central centre backs, if you like, that he was able to slot up and push into central midfield as an outer. When you see him play for West Ham, he very rarely breaks the lines, from the central area. He's always there as that kind of pivot.
Yeah. I wouldn't play 2 6s, but if I did, I think Phillips would get in ahead of Rice for me because of his distribution.
The Yorkshire Pirlo.
And I guess also his fitness, assuming that he's not absolutely knackered at this stage.
Well, I think this is the other problem as well, because obviously we're basing a lot of what we're doing that Henderson's going to be fit. But then, and then you're right, attacking areas. So what are you going to do? I mean, you're going to go with wingers, out and out wingers?
Well, I'm going to go Kane as my number 9.
As your striker.
And then Sterling one side and Foden the other. So next season's Man City top 3 probably. Kane and Sterling have worked well for England in the past, and Sterling can replicate Son in the sense of Kane dropping and Sterling running behind. And Foden's just amazing, isn't he?
Yeah. I think if you go back a year, your front 3 picks, maybe a year and a half, front 3 picks itself, which I think would have been probably Sterling, Rashford, Kane. But I'm not so sure Rashford makes with so many great attacking midfielders that have come to the fore. I'm not sure Rashford makes the.
I think it's harsh on Rashford.
Yeah.
Because you need Foden in the team, and Kane and Sterling do work very well together.
And I kind of drifted away from having wingers as such, because I kind of like having more, if you like, number 10s in the team, because I think they still offer you that threat in wide areas, but they're all equally as comfortable interchanging positions and becoming more involved in the game. I think, particularly in big tournaments, and I've seen it a lot in the Champions League this year, that a lot of teams now don't have out-and-out wingers, and they do sort of employ this floating front 3 and 4 with interchangeable 8s and 10s with an out-and-out striker. So with me, initially I wrote down 12 players, so I'm an idiot, but I think if I go with one sitter, then my front sort of like 4 would be Mount, Foden, Sterling, Kane, because I think that offers a hell of a lot of mobility across the pitch.
So the same players as me, but you just got them in slightly different positions.
In slightly different way, and I think in modern football, no one really tends to stick to their positions anyway. Yeah. So I kind of like them. Attacking players that were close for you.
Well, like you said, it's harsh on Rashford, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Sancho, I guess because we don't see a lot of Sancho other than playing for England.
Yeah.
I guess he's missed out on my team based on the fact that I don't see him play every week, and I don't really know what how well he's doing other than when he turns up for England. So Southgate might think something different on him, a bit like you picking Bellingham. I guess Bellingham just wasn't even in my thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. To be honest, actually, there's another name that we haven't brought, and he's a Chelsea player, and he went on loan to AC Milan, and he's been unbelievable. And you got the play, and that's Fikayo Tomori, and you've got. I think I actually mentioned it to you, didn't I, during the week when there's banging names about potential swap deals for Kane. The praise that Baresi and Maldini have put on Tomori since he's been there, and he's only young. He's only like 23. And I'm hoping, obviously, he comes back to Chelsea and next season. It means we don't have to buy any more defenders. Right, so if we're thinking about the expectation levels of where we think we can go in this tournament, and bearing in mind, obviously, semi-finals of the last tournament. So we're looking. I think we both agree. The minimum we should be looking at then for this tournament is a semi-final.
Well, this Euros is practically a home tournament, isn't it, for England?
Well, yeah, all 3 group games for us at Wembley, I think.
And the semi-finals and the finals also at Wembley, so it's
practically a home tournament.
So anything less than the semi-final.
And there will be fans as well, which is not, I think that's going to be quite. I think for us, particularly playing at Wembley, that's a bit of an advantage, because I don't think. They ain't going to be that well. It depends on the country, I suppose, from where they're coming from, whether or not they'll be allowed to come and watch. But
the vast majority of them will be home fans.
Yeah.
So a minimum semi-final, I think, and
obviously
we want to be going close, don't we? I think we've got a young, exciting, progressive, attacking team.
Yeah. I haven't done much homework on the opponents, but we do know their team. I think probably the unknown one would be Czech Republic. I think we probably know most of the players from Scotland, and we'll have a fair idea about, obviously because of watching Champions League football and stuff like that, we'll recognise most of the Croatian players.
I guess to a degree, once we get out of the group, and the group, as you say, of Croatia is the main one, isn't it, whether we finish first or second.
They have got an ageing squad though, Croatia. Modric is probably still their best player.
And he's 35.
And he's knocking on
35,
36. Yeah. Scotland, a good bunch of players. I'd probably a little fortunate to actually come through. I think because of the changes in the way qualifying worked for this tournament, the more teams qualified was probably why Scotland have made it. I don't think they've got. I can't really honestly worry about a lot of players. Billy Gilmore's probably going to be one of their star players, and he, just about makes our matchday squads. But it is what it is with that. I think, again, home advantage effectively. But we have obviously picked our squads before. Obviously, now Gareth has got to name his squad on Tuesday, but we have got European games coming up. So obviously Man United Europa League final, which is next
Wednesday.
Is it the Wednesday?
I think so.
Yeah, and then obviously Saturday Champions League final, and a number of those players that are in both squads are going to be in both of those games. And obviously today, 4:00, the last round of Premier League.
We're talking the morning of the last round of games.
We are,
that's
yeah. So we are literally 3 hours away from, and there's a lot riding on. Particularly a lot of those players that are involved in our squads and going to be in Gareth's squads are involved in. A lot of the games today are not dead rubbers, so they're going to be really competitive. Teams have got a lot to fight for today, so there are potentials for injuries. So that is a worry. So that's that really.
I guess the only thing on expectations would be is there's an argument that maybe sometimes the Euros is a little bit more competitive than actually what the World Cup is. So once you get out of the group, your chances of a Belgium, an Italy, a Germany, a Portugal, a Spain.
It's always going to be big teams.
So you could as much win the tournament as you could go out in the round of 16.
Yeah.
But
I haven't actually looked at. I don't know if they've set out the pathways yet about who we would play from each group. I probably should have looked at that. I don't.
But yeah, you know you're going to get a good team, aren't you? Whoever, more than likely, as I say, Portugal, Spain, Germany, Italy, Belgium. You're going to be playing a good side.
And certainly once the tournament kicks off, I'm going to be looking at doing, after each game, doing a little short podcast just to say, and maybe it's something we could do maybe over Skype as well, because obviously not always easy to come together on certain days, and particularly because matches are going to be quite close together, weekdays and that as well. So we might be able to give you like a little short sort of 5-10 minute episodes and do little reviews on how we thought games did, what Gareth picked against what we did. It'd be interesting to actually look and see how close, when he picks his first 11 for that first game against Croatia, how close to what we've done that's actually going to be.
Croatia's the first game.
And my feeling is that Gareth will go with 2 holding midfielders.
I was just about to say that,
because it's Croatia. It's a big game.
You don't want to risk it, do you?
No, you don't lose your first game.
Or even a 3 at the back, just to.
Yeah, I think he could even go with a 3 at the back and 2 holding midfielders in that game. Which I
parking the bus.
It is literally parking the bus, but I think he'll do it, and I think if all being fit, I think he'll go with the 3 at the back, and I think he'll sit Henderson and Rice in front of him if both of them are fit. No.
The only thing I'd say, you need to control Modric, and for that you need energy in midfield. You need someone who can get in and around and stop him from dictating
literally
the game.
Sit on him.
He's special. He's an amazing player.
I think Rice could if you said to Rice, right, when we're out of possession, go and sit on Modric, because he will be pushed right up forward, against the strikers and that anyway. So I think Rice could do that job. Because I do think Southgate is going to pick him. I think there is probably. I think we even discussed it. You said it during the week that you think Southgate's probably already got his first 11 pretty much.
He'll know, won't he?
Yeah, I think he would have to. You'd have contingency plans, but I think he probably knows where he's going. It's such a difficult one, because if I'm sat there and I'm Gareth Southgate, and as many plans as you've made, one injury could screw it all up. 2, if a particular player that was perhaps on the fringes of it has just all of a sudden come to life, how do you ignore that?
I think that's where England managers have failed before, isn't they? They've had their first 11, they've known what they want to do.
Yeah.
And if you look in the tournaments, it's actually when the manager's been flexible that we've done well. So thinking of 1990, where Paul Parker comes in as a third centre half, a bit like what we're talking about. They wanting to play Walker.
Yeah.
And you change the system entirely, and then Gaza goes from fringe or in the team to being central.
Best player in the World Cup
that you want around, and you need that flexibility. It must be hard, because you spend 2 years or 4 years planning towards a tournament, and this is my team, and then all of a sudden you rip everything up
as well. Particularly if you look at, say, Foden and Grealish, because there's a few similarities in terms of positional wise, where what they do, where they play. and arguably, I think it may be Southgate if he starts looking on, and he's quite a cautious manager. I think if he looks at them too, and I think he maybe only goes with one. I don't think he puts both of them in the team. I think we'd all as fans like to see a midfield made up of them two. Just, you know.
If you went with one, then you'd go with Foden at this stage based on fitness and form.
Yeah.
But
and
I'd like to see Grealish given a chance to flourish a bit like Gazza did in 90.
Yeah. So I think we're there, aren't we? Really? I mean,
yeah, we've won the tournament.
We've won.
Get to the Premier League.
Here you go, Gareth. Someone send this to Gareth. Someone copy him in the link. You know, Talk Football. And send it to Gareth. We've done it. All he's got our handle was the team talk.
Yeah, if he wants to pull us in.
Yeah, but I mean we're available. I mean, you know, I might be out on my bus and Paul may be in front of his in laptop doing some writing and whatnot. But you know, we're always available for you, Gareth. If you need to bend the ear, we're quite tactically knowledgeable.
No,
we're not. I play a lot of FIFA. That's where my tactical knowledge comes from. Right, I think we'll wrap that up then, mate. I think we've covered it. I think we're prepared and we're set and everything that we've probably said he won't do, and he probably won't pick half of the players that we have. But I think we've done well. I think it's going to be a very, very exciting tournament, and I can't wait.
Bring it on.
Let's
get this season over with and let's do something that's interesting.
So that's been your England Euros squad episode with me and my guest, Paul. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Brilliant. I'm pretty sure Paul will come back on more episodes. I think he's quite enjoying doing these. Got to give something for us old buggers to do. So that's for me, your host Hodgie and Paul. And we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you for listening to Talk Football.